is really stuck. Hi guys, and welcome to the Unquendor Guitars workshop for another part in the video series where I'm building my Phoenix Rising guitar, a Gibson Firebird inspired guitar build. In the previous episodes I mainly worked on the fretboards and I attempted to make my own orange binding strips or orange veneer, and as we've learned in the previous episode, that didn't go fully according to plan. So let's dive straight into this episode to find out if I manage to find a solution. Yeah guys, I've found a solution online, and that's pre-ordering orange veneer. The first time when I designed this guitar I couldn't find any orange veneer near me, and now I found two addresses, two suppliers that supply orange veneer. Two widely different colors. I don't know if it shows up on camera, but this is more like the orange stain we just used. And the longer strips are very close to the actual orange I use for Unquendor guitars. So yeah, there should be some choice, were it not that these strips are too short for a fretboard. So I'm forced to use these longer pieces, and I think I don't mind. I think this orange is even more subtle, so I don't mind using that. The downside is, of course, this veneer is way thinner than what I've planned for. The orange strips, they're almost twice as thick as the orange veneer, maybe even a bit thicker. But I've also found a solution to that. I'm going to make it myself even more difficult by adding another layer of veneer, and that's the black veneer we also use for the neck blank. So now the fretboard is going to be ebony black, very thin orange stripe, ebony black veneer, thin stripe, another layer of orange, and then we close it off with the cutoff of the actual fretboard. So it will be a 4-layer binding, and I'm really not sure how I'm going to do this, but this is something I really want to do. So yeah, first thing I think is to put these two pieces aside. I will find a use for them another time. And then first I'm going to cut up one of these sheets into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 strips to go with the neck blank. Scary stuff again. Keep it a bit oversized. Align it with this piece of multiply right here. And let's first mark it before cutting it. Yeah, I'm going to keep it a bit oversized, like so. And let's cut this using my sharp knife. Maybe like so. Here we go. And then cut it to approximately the height of the fretboard. just a bit over. I'm going to use the actual fretboard to make my marks. This is what I'm going to use. And here's one. Put it aside very carefully. So, and the last one. Where did I put my knife? Oh, here. And the last one. Here we go. Oh, we need one more. At least. Yeah, one more. For the ends of the fretboard. Come on. I really hate this straight edge because it's too long and too slippery. So, last one. And we need some black. So I made a whole bunch of orange strips just in case. And also I have to cut some black strips. Let's see if I can unpack this. Oh, here we go. Oh, get over here. Yeah, let's first cut this to length. I'm going to cut them to the same size, same length as the orange strips. I think that might be a good idea. The board wasn't wide enough underneath. But here we go, a black strip of veneer. I'm going to cut off this edge where the tape is. Make a mark. And again, same as with the orange, cut a few strips. Oh, be careful. That's one. I need 4 of them, but I think I'm going to make a couple more. I'm amazed by how sharp this little knife is, by the way. I haven't sharpened it since the start of this video series, and I can't really notice any difference in sharpness. As you can see, it still cuts very, very well. And do one more. Like so. So after cutting all these strips, I'm now going to make sets of 3. So one orange, one black, and again one orange. I'm going to make somewhat sure that at least one of these sides are aligned, so they're fairly straight. And then on one end I'm going to put a piece of tape like so, and now I can glue these 3 pieces together to make some binding. And I think this will look great, maybe even better than my original idea, because the orange striping is now very, very subtle. And I wish I had included orange stripes in the neck blank at the back of the neck as well. Maybe, but yeah, it's orange, so it's also a color you have to use thoughtfully, because you can easily overdo it. Look at our King's Day and the upcoming European Championships football or soccer. And the last one, set of 3, so I have some pieces spare. So yeah, those are done, and yeah, I'm very happy with how this turned out. I think having these two thinner orange strips with the center black piece might even be better than my original idea. Of course, orange can be a tricky color if you use it too much. You can easily overdo it. And by having these thinner strips, it's much more subtle, and then the extra black piece just adds something special. So yeah, that shows how sometimes a second idea turns out to be better than the original one. So yeah, I'm very pleased. My next step is to glue every 3 pieces, so every bundle of these strips together to make a thicker veneer I can cut at a miter angle and stick to the sides of the fretboard. So time to glue these 3 strips of veneer together, and I'm going to use just regular Titebond. So I have my glue right here, a brush, some masking tape, and I've put a piece of multiply on my bench to not drench my entire bench in glue, because I think this might end up a bit messy. So yeah, I'm not sure. I think I have to remove this piece of tape from the end, maybe. Come on. Or at least open it up. Now let's see. To be honest, it's a bit cold out, so the glue is very thick. Come on. Here we go. I think there's no way around it that this is going to get messy with glue everywhere. Come on, come Right, this looks all right. I think I need a little clamp right here. So I'm sorry if my stool is creaking. And the mic picks it up. It is what it is. Click. Now let's see, how am I going to do this? Maybe, let's stay in the frame. Maybe I can do it like this, just stick it down to the sheet of plywood, multiply plywood. Maybe I should have made a clamping rig. Just 2 sheets of plywood or MDF, thick MDF, with a couple of bolts, and just press it together like they do to dry out flowers and such. Or a bookbinder's press, something like that. But I didn't. Maybe for next time, if I ever attempt something like this again. Come on. One done. Yeah, I think I might need to put something heavy on top, because I can see the edges of the veneer curling up a bit. So I go to make a clamping device, kinda. Yeah, I think I'm going to change tactics. I'm going to glue these strips and then use masking tape to tape them together and then put them under my clamping jig. It's been a couple of hours since the last clip, and in the meantime I did some preparations for the next step, and of course I checked on these little strips and made sure everything went well, and that's why I changed the clamping arrangement somewhat. For those who might be wondering and noticed it was different, and that's because I already removed the masking tape so it wouldn't glue onto the strips too much, and made a slight arrangement to make sure everything was nice and flat. So, come on. Here we go. Big reveal. Haha. Here they are. Thin little binding strips. The glue on these strips has now fully dried, and I can use an improvised jig to tidy up at least one of these edges before I glue them to the fretboards. So improvised jig right here, and hopefully this will work. Seems like it might work, because clamping down these fragile thin pieces in such a way that you can work on the edge can be quite challenging. So with the tiny strip placed in this improvised jig, it's highly improvised, but it works for now. And if I'm going to do this more often, I'm going to make a more permanent solution. But for now, this is a great way to hold down that tiny little strip, and because I'm using an actual fretboard as my improvised depth stop, I know that the strip I'm going to end up with won't be too narrow. Again, these shavings. Orange, black, orange shavings. Very thin. I love it. So there's another one done. So nice and straight edge. So I'm going to do the rest of them, and I'll be right back with you guys once the strips are all nice and cleaned up. Yeah guys, I've cleaned up all the strips, at least on one side, and now it's time to start gluing the strips and making the binding on these fretboards. But to be frank with you, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to film this all, because it's the first time for me and I have some inkling about what I'm going to do. I'm not sure how I'm going to best capture this on film, and I only have 2 fretboards to attempt and get some nice footage. So yeah, hopefully all goes well. First thing I need to do is cut off the last section of these fingerboards, both of them. So let's take out a Japanese saw and cut these last 2 sections off. So here we go. Cutting this off very carefully to make sure I keep nice and square. You get a near perfect cut. That's one. There's a tiny edge right there. So I'm going to use my carver's file. And clean this up. Very carefully. Yeah. Next fingerboard. Here we are. And this one I have also some cleaning up to do. Not much, but I'm making sure I have a nice gluing surface. Like that. And the next thing is I'm going to take these little strips and at the bottom end of the fretboard and the side where these two meet, of course, I'm going to attempt and make a miter joint. And to do so off camera, I made this little jig, or at least I expanded on an already existing jig to either cut a miter with the Japanese saw or use this edge, which is a perfect 45-degree angle, and a chisel, a wide chisel, so I can slice down through these 3 layers of veneer and create the 45-degree miter. So this is going to be a challenging bit, I think. No other way of doing this but to put this in the jig. So guys, let's see the first miter, and I made this little jig again, just improvised off camera. I can put in that little strip on one side, use a clamp to hopefully hold it in place, and this is the other side, and I think I will be able to make this miter joint like so. So then I have to, let's see, can I mark it? Yeah, I think I can. So made this little mark, and this is the short side of the other miter. So I'm going to improve this mark. Like so. And yeah, let's try and cutting this one to size. So let's see, let's put it in the guillotine. with that line right on the edge. Clamp it down. Yeah. And then use my chisel. Now I have to move it back so slightly. This should be it. And of course this has to be a very sharp chisel. Now let's see if this piece fits. So guys, I have everything lined up, hopefully, and off camera I stuck a piece of masking tape underneath the fretboard so I can use this to hold down this little piece while we glue it in place. And like I said, for this part I'm going to use a bit of super glue. And for this I'm using the Zep medium. It's gap filling, it bonds everything, relatively fast curing. So. Oh, I'm very happy. I would have never thought it would end up like this. I expected this to be a nightmare to do, but so far, knock on wood, so good. So guys, when I just glued on the end piece of our binding, I didn't realize I was working on the Obsidian Ebony fretboard. And as the manufacturer stated, I should have used epoxy glue, but instead we used GA glue. And I did some testing off camera and we should be fine. But just in case, I'm going to use some epoxy glue for these two side stripes. And I'm usually not a fan of epoxy glue, and I don't remember if I mentioned this in the previous video, but I never had much success with using two component glue or anything that has to do with two components. I don't know why, but it either stays tacky, it doesn't fully cure, it stays flexible, you name it. So up until now I never had any success with using epoxy glue, and that's why I went and bought this little syringe. So the ratio between hardener and the actual glue should be perfect, and then I have to mix it for about 3 minutes, and then I have 5 minutes to apply it. So I'm not going to show you 3 minutes of me mixing up this batch of epoxy, but I'll be back when it's time to glue on these sides. So guys, I'm done mixing. And now I'm going to see if I can free this up. Yeah, here we go. And first I'm going to glue down this side so I can put my fingerboard against the little fence I created with my little jig. Let's see how this goes. I have to be fairly quick if I only have about 5 minutes. And if I'm going out of frames, I'm sorry guys, but I can't adjust the camera right now. And that's one downside of filming all by yourself. There's no one to help you adjust anything if that would be needed. No. As you can see, I've taped everything off with masking tape. So hopefully I can get this off. I know I can with regular wood glue, and to some extent with CA glue, but I'm not sure with epoxy. Hopefully I have a few moments left, so I can stick the glue on here real quick. I think I'm already too late, maybe, I'm not sure yet. Yeah, I think I'm already too late. So I'm going to remove this. I'm not going to take any chances with the possibility of the epoxy glue setting or something like that. So I'm going to clamp this down for a moment and prepare another batch of glue. I really thought I had some clamps set already. I'm not sure, guys. I really don't like this. I really don't like this. There's no time for adjustments whatsoever. To be frank, I think it's way too messy for my liking. And that was also my first reaction when they told me you had to use epoxy glue. So, hopefully all went well. I always have a feeling when using epoxy that I'm not in control. That the curing time, the setting time is too short for some of the things, and maybe you can get a slower setting epoxy, but I haven't found any yet. So yeah, I'm going to mix up another batch of epoxy and then I'll be back when it's time to glue on the other side. So here we go. A new batch of epoxy. And I use this very tiny mixing bowl they provided with the glue. Make sure to hit the miter joint with some glue. So, glue is applied. So let's put it aside so you guys can see something. So first, of course, make sure the miter joins nicely. Something like this. And then stick down the rest of this veneer. Something like so, and my apologies for getting out of frame. Now, yeah, clamp it all together. Two. Okay, so everything seems to be glued on like it's supposed to, hopefully. So now the only thing to do is wait for the glue to set, about 15 minutes, and then do the other fretboard. I needed to recharge the batteries for the wireless mic transmitter and receiver. And in the meantime, instead of doing nothing, I prepared the next fretboard for glue up. So I've cut these orange and black stripes to size, made sure the miter and the end was fitting perfectly, and I've used some masking tape to stick on these orange strips. And now the only thing left to do is put on some glue on all the orange strips, and then stick everything together and wait for the glue to set. So make sure the orange strip is stuck to the fretboard properly. Now I can open it up. Same goes for the end piece. I should be still able to loosen it. Now take some glue and again my trusty brush. And first I'm going to do this one, the end piece, tiny bit of glue. Maybe a tiny bit more. Don't overdo it. And then stick it in place. Next one, the one near me. Come on. Make sure there's some glue on the miter joint. And just a moment ago I couldn't remember what a miter joint was called in English. I had to look it up. I think I've said it a dozen times in this video and I just couldn't recall. And I had to look it up. Alright. So nice and tight. And this is way better than using the epoxy glue. This is so much easier and more inside of my comfort zone, to be honest. Now I can just put it against this little fence and do the other side. Glue near the end. Yeah, plenty of glue there. Something like so. Now flip this back in place, starting at one end. Yeah. Alright, make sure, yeah, it's fitting together nicely. Remove some excess glue, masking tape, and clamp it all together in this little jig. Oh. Starting at this end. So yeah, let me raise these two lamps. They're in the way now. It's very nice being able to raise and lower them depending on if I need more or less light on my workbench. And for now I don't need that much light anymore. And now with the lights raised back to the ceiling, I can give you guys a much clearer view of the workbench. And yeah, at the moment, of course, the fretboard is all clamped up, so I'm going to have this cure overnight. And in the meantime, I'm going to tidy up the workshop. There's stuff laying around everywhere, so I'm going to clean up, prepare for the next stage, and due to the power of video editing, I'll see you guys in just a moment. So it's the next day, so all the glue on the fretboards should have fully cured. So let's remove the clamps. So first one out is the Obsidian Ebony fretboard. And off camera I already removed some masking tape just to make sure the masking tape wasn't glued to the fretboard by the epoxy glue. Alright, this is all stuck together. So let's carefully try to remove it from the jig. Oh, shoot. One removed. and it's stuck to the jig because I used a tiny bit of super glue to help me glue down some gaps that were showing. It's really stuck. Yeah. No other option than to take the jig apart. Oh. I have a very bad feeling about this. Whew. That was very scary, but luckily, as far as I can see, no harm was done to this fretboard while making this video, so to say. So yeah, the next thing is to take off all the tape and then trim the edges flush with the fretboard. So I removed most of the tape, and now the first thing I'm going to do is trim off the excess. And I'm going to use this little Japanese saw. It's a Japanese flush cut saw. And it's nice and small enough to get in between these two side strips. Like so, and then use my leveling beam to very carefully clean up the cut a bit so it's nice and flush with the nut later on. So now I can trim the two side strips flush with the front and the back of the fretboard. So now it's finally time to trim down these sides, and to help me do so I'm going to use, of course, a small little plane and chisel, scraper, all my sharpest tools. And then it's just a matter of starting to cut down these sides very carefully, especially here at the end, so I don't accidentally rip out entire sections of the binding. Maybe I think I'm going to use a different plane first, and that's what I usually do. Usually I have these two very similar Stanley block planes, and one is for a bit heavier, and it's for coarser stuff. It's set up a bit differently. The mouth on the plane is much wider, so it usually tends to be more suited for some coarser cuts, or it's just a preference. This feels, of the older one feels more subtle. It has more finesse to it, if you can speak of finesse when you're talking about planes. But and this is not rocket science, it's just a matter of very carefully trimming down the edge, I think. Again, these nice orange and black shavings. So the fretboards are nice and clean, and now it's time to start cutting the fret slots through the sides, and then it's almost time to add the sides of the fretboard back to the fretboard, I think. So yeah, let me first set up everything to recut all the fret slots, and I can use my bench and two filler blocks, and I use these little pieces of wood in between my bench dogs and my workpiece, because I've noticed that these bench dogs tend to leave a mark, so I always use something in between. I'm going to take out my Japanese saw, and I've already tried one, and put it in the fret slot and very carefully start cutting through the veneer, or at this point it's officially binding, on one side and then on the other side. And because the curve of my Japanese saw is too narrow for a fret tang, I'm going to use a fret cutting saw and just widen the slot ever so slightly. And it just needs 1 or 2 passes. And we're done. At least for these 2 fret slots. I have 46 more to go. And the funny thing is, I can use this clip on Instagram just to pretend that I've cut all these fret slots by hand. So, all the fret slots have been recut with my Japanese saw, and then, yeah, like I said, with a regular fretting saw, I widened the curve made by the Japanese saw and deepened the fret slots ever so slightly, just to be sure that once I've sanded in the radius, the fret slots are still deep enough. I imagined the next step would be to finish the binding on the fretboard by making the binding from the strips we cut from the fretboard in the previous episode, but I just realized that when I do that, there's no way for me to resaw the fret slots once the inlay is in. So the next step will be making the inlay. But unfortunately, making the inlay will be in the next episode. I hope you liked this one, and if you did, let me know by leaving a like, leaving a comment, question or suggestion in the comment section down below. This helps other people to find my content and enjoy my videos, and in the long run it will help me to grow my channel even more. If you'd like to support me more direct, take a look at my merchandise in the store underneath this video, and that's a great way for you to get a nice t-shirt and support me more directly. If you're new to my channel and you happen to like what you've seen, please consider subscribing and set your notifications to notify. Also, YouTube will notify you when I upload something new. That said, I hope to see you all in the next episode, but until then, as always, take care and bye bye.